This is Julie Maruskin at the Clark County Public Library, and we are closed to the public. But since we're not doing programs, I wanted to present some of the things online that either you missed this year or you wanted to attend later and we weren't able to have it in person. So what we're doing is starting tomatoes and peppers this week. Some of you have asked me about growing with the signs, and I do it not because I don't do it consistently. I try to do it because it is a time-honored folklore tradition throughout the United States, but especially in the Southern Appalachian. And I did want to explain to you, if you plan on using an almanac, and you should, because a good almanac is going to show you the best days according to the signs and the placement of the moon, if you are so inclined to do that. But you need to watch out because there are almanacs that aren't accurate. The schedules are astronomically cast, for lack of a better term, but some of the almanacs in the United States, especially throughout the early 20th century, the late 19th century, did not match the tried and true Farmer's Almanac. I wanted to show you this. This is the one with the yellow cover. And for those of you who can't go out and get one right now, I encourage you to stay out of stores if you absolutely have to. You can go online to almanac.com and you can download the 2020 Old Farmer's Almanac as a PDF format, or you can look at it. There is a small subscription fee. If you don't feel like spending money on a fee right now, I have to recommend another website to you. If you do want to order an almanac, it's not too late to order one from John Bayer as well. Those are the two most reliable and oldest almanacs in the United States. But there is another website that you can go to, and it's called, I don't know if you can see this, it's called AstroSeek. And the website, it shows you every phase of the moon, and it shows you what sign, quote unquote, what astrological sign the moon is in. So this also has a fairly easy web address. It's mooncalendar.astro-seek.com. And that's mooncalendar, mooncalender.astro, A-S-T-R-O-seek, SEEK.com, and you want to look for the moon phases calendar for the current month. This will allow you to set it to your time zone. So you just put in I just put in Winchester, Kentucky, 40391, and it popped up exactly the times that the moon switches from one sign to another. And if you're following the astrological signs and the phase of the moon to plant, that's important. So today we're going to do peppers. I'm going to do peppers a little bit differently. If you saw the tomatoes planting earlier today, I'm going to try something different for me. I bought one of these last year, and this is a seed tray that allows you to plant a row and identify each little row as a different kind of seed. So I want to try my peppers. These are a little shallower than the recycled containers. This is a grower's tray. Normally, I plant my peppers in a small berry box or a mushroom till that has holes poked in the bottom. And for this size box, I would use a push pin, just a plain old one of these. You can see that. I would use one of those, take the bottom of my box, and just put about 25 holes scattered all over the bottom of it, hopefully without puncturing my hand. You want to keep your fingers out of the way. Like I said earlier, ask me about the wrong way to do something. I can tell you. So after you put several holes in the bottom, this is for drainage, and it's also so that you can put this whole container in a pan of water and water from the bottom, which is a great way to help keep your baby plants from picking up diseases. If you water from the top, it can spread the seeds around, disturb the roots before they're ready to be disturbed, and it can also mean that you end up with a fungal or bacterial infection at the soil line that will hurt your plant. So got holes in the bottom here. This already has holes in the bottom of it. Again, a big shout out to our cataloger, Pat Taylor, who brings me these all year round from all of the goodies that the fresh goodies she eats every day. So again, these are what mushrooms used to come in. More people do cardboard. And this is a blueberry or cherry tomato box, if you've seen those. But I'm going to try this. This has a space for 9 different varieties. If I wanted to do that, I'm going to grow 2 rows of some of the varieties of peppers that I like, just to have those. It's a little shallower. It's still deep enough. It looks like it's about an inch and a half deep. And for those of you who are interested in what signs we have today, we are in what a lot of people here call first quarter, and that is the waxing crescent moon. We've just passed the point where the moon reappears in the sky after having gone dark for a period. And as the moon rises in the sky to become a full moon, the period up to the first crescent moon is waxing crescent. As we pass the crescent moon going toward the full moon, that's called waxing gibbous, because the full moon has a very beautiful old-fashioned name that we don't hear a lot anymore unless you raise by the signs, and that is the gibbous moon. So after the full moon, where you shouldn't do anything but plant anything you want to be crazy and go out and pick your mushrooms and any medicinal herbs, if you want something to do in the middle of the night, that according to the moon signs, that's what you do on the full moon, or just enjoy the moon out in your garden. But after the full moon passes and starts to wane in the sky, it's called the waning gibbous moon to that last quarter. And a lot of people just call that point the last quarter, but that's called the waning crescent. So some very, very pretty ancient terms to describe the moon's travels through the sky, but also very useful if you're doing moon sign. So what I have soil starting mix that I've already mixed up. For those of you who are wondering about the formula, I use a dry mix, which you can get almost any place, literally any box store that's still open, any agricultural supply. You can buy the stuff online. But here is the formula for this size plastic dish pan, and I wrote it on the pan so I can't forget it. I start with 12 cups of dry mix, and I start with 8 cups of warm water. Warm helps it mix faster, so you don't end up with the peat in the soilless mixes all over the place. If I need to add some, I'll add up to another cup of water, but that's about the ratio is 21:9. And that makes a nice moist mix. I can put my hand in it and squeeze just a few drops of water out, if you can see that. Not much at all, and I'm squeezing pretty hard. So what I'm gonna do, this is nice and light and fluffy. I'm gonna put this, I could be couth and use my measuring cup, which I rarely do, just so you know. I like the feel of the moist mix, but to tell you the truth, a lot of people do have some sensitivity to it, especially if you work in it all day. But I am a little allergic to some of the things that are in it. The peat, the acids in the peat apparently start to wear on me after I've done this all day. So I'm going to wash up really well. We all should be washing, wash, especially if you're playing in the soil. Especially if you've been around other people. Remember to keep washing your hands. So what I'm doing is filling up every single row of this tray as best I can. I don't want to have it underfilled. I'm going to go ahead. I'm not going to fill it all the way to the top, because what I'm going to do here in a minute is put the seeds in. Then I'm going to sprinkle some soil on top. A really nice person would have had this already done before you took the time to watch this, so sorry about that. The edges are always a little bit of a problem, trying to get those scooped in. inside without throwing your soil everywhere. Okay. I have my seed packets already laid out. Again, I'm going to do some peppers. A little bit late starting peppers. To be quite honest, this is about a week after I do my tomatoes. Tomatoes don't need as much time in the house as peppers. Peppers are slower. Tomatoes and peppers are cousins. They're both in the Solanaceae, the nightshade family. And yes, they are both related to deadly nightshade. They both have parts of the plant that you don't necessarily want to eat, not because they would hurt you a lot, but you wouldn't feel very well. They don't taste very nice. Almost everything in this family does have trace elements of nicotine. It may or may not have trace elements of some of the other even psychoactive compounds. That does not mean that you should go out and start smoking tomatoes or peppers. It just means that there are tiny, tiny amounts of a whole lot of alkaloids from this family in those two, well, in every species within that family. So it's a big family. It includes potatoes, tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, petunias, tobacco, tomatillas, lots of stuff in that family. Okay, now I have successfully thrown dirt all over everything. So we're going to get back to what we were doing. When you plant your seeds, it's a really great idea for a lot of reasons. I do keep track of everything that I put in. I keep track of everything that I plant out in my yard. I keep a map because when my perennials come up, I want to know whether I'm weeding a perennial or whether I am weeding weed. Some of them look similar. So I have a placement map, and I also use it when I do my vegetables. The other thing that you definitely want to be aware of is labeling. Again, because you want to know when stuff comes up. It's good to track it so you'll know if you have something that's slow. I grow a tomato called Butler Skinner that was named for an incredibly nice man in Winchester who was one of, he gardened organically before people even called it that, I think. And he had a tomato that went back to at least the 1930s or 1940s. He may have gotten it from someone in Estill County, but I've heard several stories about where Butler came across his tomato. He was our jailer in town in Winchester for a long time, and he always grew one of these tomatoes in front of the jail. And there is a photograph in the Winchester Sun from the 1970s of Butler successfully holding one of his first ripe tomatoes above his head in front of the jailhouse and smiling. So his sons, Donnie and Rankin, have both told me that that was the latest tomato in their garden. And so when they were little and going to elementary school, their mother, Opal Fern, would pack Butler Skinner tomatoes for tomato sandwiches in their lunches when they went back to school in September. And it's a great tomato. It can be a little fussy some years. But I like to know, Butler takes a while to germinate. The first year I grew it, I didn't know that, and I thought I had killed it. So that's one reason. Most tomatoes come up in 3 to 4 days. Butler will sit around and look at you for a week and almost even 2 weeks before it germinates. It's a great plant. It is not a weak plant, but it does take its time about deciding to come up. So do peppers. What I'm going to do as I go through and plant my peppers is I'm going to label directly on this flat. The first thing I'm going to do is Grandpa's Home Pepper, and I'm going to write Grandpa's. I'm going to write the date once because I'm planting all of these today, and I am going to open up Grandpa's Home Pepper. It's one of my very, very favorite peppers, and this is a Russian. It's called Grandpa's Home Pepper because it's a Russian heirloom that was grown in dachas out in the country. It was one that made a small, fat bush. Small, when I say small, the bush can get up to 2 feet tall and 2 feet across, but it does well indoors. It's nearly indestructible, and it will reseed itself and fruit in Kentucky. It makes a little pepper that's a great seasoning pepper. It's a little hotter than a jalapeno. It's very, very beautiful, and it dries well. It dries very well as well. Birds also like it, so it's something that will attract and keep birds in your garden. Birds don't have a way to taste hot, so to speak, and they do love peppers, which are very good for them because of the vitamin load. So Grandpa's is the first one that's going to go in here. So I've got my seed out. I have about, fortunately, this was the end of a packet, so I'm going to put this down. I do have another packet. This seed is 2 years old, which concerns me a little. You can keep tomato seed around for a very long time, up to 10 years. Especially if you have it in the refrigerator, you can probably keep tomato seed forever if you have it in the freezer. Pepper seed is drier and lighter, and it is a little fussier than tomato seed. It does not have the fat protection, apparently, that a tomato seed has. Tomato seeds are wearing a little fuzzy coat. They're very fat. Pepper seeds are dry and they're light, and they have a tendency to not germinate very well. I'm placing these seeds about 3/4 of an inch apart. This is big experiment for me using this tray, and I would be lying to you if I didn't tell you I'm a little bit nervous about doing this. So I'm going to do some like this today, and I'll let you know what happens. This is one of the byproducts of sowing hot peppers. They're still hot after they're dry for 2 or 3 years, even when they're losing viability. They're hot. So I've got grandpas in. My goal is to go ahead and cover these up because I don't want to fling the wrong pepper. This is what's not going to be incredibly easy about this particular style. I'm putting about 1/4 of an inch of seed on top as I go. So I've done this whole first row, and I've got them in bed. This is why I would not label everything in the flat. I'm going to take all of my grandpa's hot pepper seeds, and this is seeds that I planted go in this slot. I'm putting those back, and I am writing down, again, I keep a gardening journal, March the 26th, and grandpa's. My next pick is another favorite of mine. It's called Habanera. If you're familiar with the habanero variety, Habanera is the same species. It is a different species from most peppers that we grow. This is Capsicum chinense, not Capsicum annuum. And it grows just like an habanero. Habaneros have always been, for me, extremely easy to grow. They're very pretty plants, but I don't do the heat well anymore. And habanera is wonderful because it tastes like an habanero, but it has no heat, hence the name habanera. Everything that I'm planting is open pollinated. That means that it's not a hybrid, and so that if you want to try to save seeds from it, if you can protect your plants so that they don't accidentally cross-pollinate, you will have extremely good success in saving seeds. Pepper seed is, again, one of the easiest to save. You don't have to ferment it. You let the pods dry out. You collect the seed. You may have to fight the birds for them. And again, this is about 25 seeds. I'm trying to plant them anywhere from 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch apart, just to give them a little growing room. You can plant things much more closely than you would imagine if you're good about transplanting them. And I've got this a little bit too full, so I'm going to poke these guys down in here with my finger just a tad. And then sprinkle some soil on top. I always look at my fingernails to make sure I don't have seeds caught under them. And again, because you're trying to keep your varieties separated, so you don't want to, and I forgot to write habanera on here. Always check yourself. Just keep checking yourself. Because if you don't, you won't know what you got. So again, on a dark tray, I use a light colored Sharpie. Trying to get this dry enough. You can also use a marker. I prefer to write on the tray. You can use a plastic excuse me, picnic knife and write on it with a Sharpie. Okay, so that's Avanada. I am writing that in my journal. The next one that I'm going to plant is one that we had in our seed library this year. This came to us from Eden Brothers in Brevard, North Carolina. And if you have participated in the Clark County Public Library seed library, you've gotten one of these little packets, or you may have gotten up to 30 of these little packets. But this is piquillo, and this is a pepper that it's one of those Russian roulette peppers. Most of them are fairly sweet, but every now and then you get a hot one. And it's not too hot. It's not even as hot as a jalapeno. So this is piquillo, Piquillo, piquillo. It's cute little fat, it's shaped like one of those emery strawberries that you used to have in your sewing box. Again, I'm going to make sure I didn't do with habanadas and have it a little too full. So we're just going to continue to do this. We put a fair number of seeds. We try to do a commercial packet when we pack our seeds. We purchase in bulk. We have a consortium of libraries. There are 7 of us in Kentucky right now, mostly in central Kentucky. There is Bath County, Bourbon County, Clark County, Harrison County, Lincoln County, Madison County, Woodford County. That's all of us. So I got them all. But a lot of other libraries have seed libraries as well, so you might want to check, if you're watching this someplace else, check with your local library and see if they have a seed library in 2020 and if they're able to get you some seeds. If not, try any of the local seed companies or online seed companies, your local seed companies, if they've signed the Safe Seed Pledge, and that just means you're not getting that means that you're not getting a GMO product if that's what you don't want to put in your garden. So, but there are quite a few seed companies out there these days. And I understand they're doing quite a good business. It looks like a lot of people are going to be doing a little victory gardening. We like to hear that. I like to think of us as growing a green garden for Andy Beshear this year, doing victory gardening for Governor Beshear, who's been a very strong local leader. And he's all about keeping us safe, happy, and healthy. So we are doing a Growing for Andy project, Andy Beshear. So one of the other ones I want to do, and this is a hot one, is a pepper called Fish. If you see this, this is from Baker Creek Seeds. Fish is a very old African-American heirloom. And African-American heirlooms are not all that common. And the reason that they're not, there are a lot of African heirlooms. There are not a lot of true old African-American heirlooms because of specifically slavery. And that's one of the most horrific parts of the slave trade, was people were not only reduced to nothing, they were not considered human. They had been kidnapped, forcibly kidnapped, taken far, far away from their homes with no names, no clothes. And if you don't have any clothing, you have no place to even hide seeds. And for people to be stripped of foods, their traditional home foods, is a horrifying thing. And that's why fish is really special to me. It's a really beautiful pepper to begin with. It tastes good, and it's called Fish because it was brought in by free African Americans, and it ended up being used in a lot of Maryland fish houses that were black owned. And it was called Fish because it's a very pale, creamy green. When it is unripe, it's actually striped, and it has variegated foliage that's cream and green, so it's pretty decorative. But it didn't turn delicate fish dishes that sort of strange puce pink like the red peppers did, and that's not a great color for a fish dish. So it kept them a nice, pretty light yellowish color, and that's how this became, but it has enough spice in it. It has very good flavor. So it's wonderful in chowders and wonderful in different fish fries, but it doesn't turn your fish that weird shade of pink. So this is fish pepper. And again, I also grow it in honor of the men and women who were not able to bring family seeds with them, and so those were lost, as well as a lot of other heritage and history. So in honor of every man and woman and child that suffered slavery, I plant these as a reminder, and again in honor of them, because of so many things. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. You get the idea. And what I'm going to do with this flat, I will finish it later, but just to give you some idea of what I'll be doing with it, is this entire flat will be under a plastic cover, which you can see it looks like a cake container. And this is going to go on my heat setup over here. Once the plants emerge, this will come off and I'll turn the lights on them. So that's what we're doing starting peppers today. If you have any questions, please join us. You can email me at clarkbooks@gmail.com, and you can refer to our website at clarkbooks.org. You can still access our seed library at clarkbooks.org/seeds, S-E-E-D-S. So get out and play in the dirt, grow green for Andy, and I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any ideas about what you'd like to see us start, please let me know. Thank you from the Clark County Public Library. We hope to see you in person again very, very soon. Thanks.